Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live. Now, here's the caveat. It is summertime here in Michigan. And what that means is that for me, I am probably floating in a pool or in a lake somewhere along the way. But when it's summertime, I like to squeeze all the juice that I can get out of these beautiful summers here in Michigan. So instead of leaving you all hanging on a Sunday Night Live, I'm pre-recording this for you. So I apologize I'm not here live. However, that doesn't mean that you can't still make comments in the chat. And I really encourage you to leave comments, chat it up, send me all of your questions because I will come back later and read the comments, when I'm done floating in the water. So this is just my summertime thing, and I want to be able to enjoy all of it, but still be able to show up for you. So this was my compromise. I hope that's okay for you. I hope everybody's doing amazing. So welcome in wherever you're tuning in from. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and make sure that you are engaging and hitting that thumbs up button for me so that we can continue to show this great content to the world. So today, what I want to talk about is if your body could invoice you for stress, would you be overdrafting each and every day? This is really an important question because I'm having people ask me, especially women, as they're going through transitions in life, I'm getting asked a lot of questions about hormones. Should I go on hormones? Now, this conversation is going to work for everybody, but the inspiration for actually having this show is that nothing is going to save you unless you do the things that I'm going to tell you in today's episode. So if you have health issues of any kind, if you're struggling with anxiety, if you have poor sleep, if you aren't moving your body properly, if you're overweight, you can't lose weight, you've got digestive issues, if there's autoimmune things going on, maybe if you have migraine headaches every day, it doesn't necessarily matter what it is that you're experiencing. What matters is what are you doing to support your body and your life? And are you taking withdrawals in the form of stress? Our bodies cannot handle all the stress that we are under. It is coming at us fast and furious in the form of physical stress. So the things that even just sitting in this chair, sitting is a form of physical stress. And I think people need to recognize that. A lot of people have desk jobs. And so if you have to work at a computer all day, sitting is a form of stress. We call that repetitive stress. And what happens in that situation is you're sitting, your spine is not aligned properly, and your head starts to fall forward like this. And then it ends up sitting way out in front of you, which is like holding a bowling ball all day long, way out here in front of you. That's a lot of excess stress on the shoulders, on the neck, on the mid-back, and even the lower back. It can put stress and strain on the shoulder joints, the nerves. It's really so bad for you. But what do we do about it? If you have no choice but to have to sit at a desk all day, then what are some things that you can do to help protect yourself? Then there's emotional stressors. And emotional stressors do things like make your body feel like it's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger all day long. So it increases cortisol. When cortisol increases, it actually can disrupt our sleep. It actually can affect our ability to lose weight. It can cause weight gain. It can cause digestive issues. It can cause inflammation in the body. It can cause all kinds of things. So we have to think about where this stress lands. So physical stress, emotional stress, and then we have chemical stress. And chemical stressors are really important. In fact, there's a lot of talk around this today with the MAHA movement and the food dyes in our foods. But it's far more than that. We have chemicals in our air, in our water, and of course we have chemicals in our food. And so we have to be very mindful of the things that we can control. And I was saying this on a podcast the other day, especially with the food dye issue and this push to get food dyes out of our food. I'm all for that. I don't think that we should have any chemicals in our food. Our food should just be food. It shouldn't be food-like substance. We shouldn't have to put red food dye into something to make it brighter, to make people want to buy it. A cherry is so pure. Like there's no food dye in there. And yet it's so pure and wonderful. A blueberry, we have natural dyes, but in that respect, just eat the food, like just eat the natural thing. So food dyes are a huge thing. But back in the 70s, when my mom she figured out that all she had to do was remove artificial sweeteners, flavors, and colors from our diets. And she removed all sugar cereals. She removed all of the processed foods, and we just never bought them. So she voted with her dollar. And so that's the problem I have with this push to get food dyes out, is there are other things that there's hidden chemicals that don't have to be labeled. So that's a whole nother show, but I just want to touch on that a little bit as far as chemical stress. When you put those chemicals in your body, it creates a tremendous amount of stress for your nervous system, your digestion, your brain. It causes inflammation, and maybe your joints are a little extra achy, and it can also disrupt sleep. So when we look at our stressors that we're exposing ourselves to each and every day, what is that? What does that look like from a bank account? And if your body had to invoice you every time you actually put physical, chemical, emotional stressors onto or into your body, what would that invoicing be? And would you be withdrawn? And how many days in a row or years would you be overdrawn? So let's dive into it. I know a lot of you are just paying with your body and your health, and you're not paying attention to what are the things that you can do to actually start to start to create wealth with your health. And that's really the important thing here. We have a lot of our health issues today are, we have people with brain fog, fatigue, again, the hormone chaos, the mood swings, the poor sleep. And if we don't get our arms around this, it's just going to continue. In fact, what happens most of the time is people have been so used to living a certain way. And then suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I've got chronic pain every day when I get up, or, you do the moaning and the groaning when you wake up, or I can't bend over and tie my shoes or touch my toes. These are all things that seem to have crept up on you, but it's because of the habits that you've been adopting for most of your life. So if you can't sleep and you can't focus and you find yourself like snapping at your kids or snapping at your partner, this is really that's the invoice that's showing up in the mail and saying, hey, you better do something about that. So your nervous system doesn't actually know that you're in traffic or that there's a deadline. You got to get your kids to soccer, or maybe you've got to pay some bills. It doesn't know the difference between those events or if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Now, what does that mean? So let's just go back. And I say saber-toothed tiger because it just sounds funny. And if we think of way back and walking on the prairie and the sun is shining and there's butterflies and there's birds singing and you're picking flowers and you're just strolling along and life is good. That's called a parasympathetic state. What that means is you're in a resting, digesting, and repairing state. Your body is calm. It's not dealing with any stress, any bad stress, but it's not dealing with any stress. And so life is good. And let's say you just ate a sandwich and your body's, digesting that and all is well. And then suddenly a saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the brush and you freak out and you start running and you're running from that saber-toothed tiger. Now let's think about this for a minute. Your heart rate has to go up. Your blood pressure has to go up. The blood moves from your gut to the extremities so that you can run harder and faster and climb a tree. So that sandwich you just ate, do you think your body has the power or really even cares about digesting it? Or no, it wants to save your life. So it moves blood to the areas that are critical to save your life. How many of you are walking around today with digestive disorders, digestive issues? It's from chronic stress, chronic everyday stress. See, we're meant to have this stress acutely, meaning once, one and done, not every single day. We're living in a toxic stress soup, and we're just not doing anything to get out of it. The other thing that happens is if you, let's say you have a cold, or you don't even have a cold, you got to save your life. Your immune system, the function of the immune system goes down, because that takes a lot of energy. And so a lot of people are prone to sickness. I get people in here and they're like, oh yeah, I get at least 2 to 3 sinus infections every year. That's because you're under chronic stress and you're continually doing things that keep your immune system from being able to work at its top notch. So chronic stress is a really important issue to pay attention to. So we have to stop this fight or flight, this being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, and be able to move ourselves into rest, digest, and repair. Now, when we get these cortisol spikes, these stress hormones, this is what happens when people lose sleep. You wake up at 2 a.m., that's a cortisol spike. If you're a 2 a.m. wake-upper, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know, are you a 2 a.m. wake-upper? Because what happens is you've had so much stress. You've been pushing your adrenal glands, pushing that cortisol so hard during the day, and you never really give your adrenals a chance to re-regulate. And then at 2 a.m., they want to have a party. And so it's like, boom, and you get a massive burst of cortisol at 2 a.m., and it takes about 2 hours for that to leave the system. So what happens? You're wide awake at 2 a.m. for about 2 hours, aren't you? If that happens to you, you need to start paying attention. We have to work on regulating our stress during the day so that we can get proper sleep at night. See, it's really easy. You hear me saying a lot, if we don't fix sleep, we can't fix anything. We have to get you sleeping properly, because when you sleep is when you heal. But it's not as simple as just like, oh, you have to take magnesium before you go to bed and meditate a few minutes. You've got to make sure you're doing things all throughout the day that set your body up and set your nervous system up for sleep. And it's going to take a little while. It takes a little while for your body to actually feel safe to be in rest, digest, and repair. So it becomes a habit. You have to be disciplined to do the things during the day so that your body can rest, digest, and repair at night, and you can wake up feeling refreshed. Now, what'll happen is that most of us feel like we are just on an empty tank. And that alone, if you're feeling like that, you're just exhausted, you're drained. Again, this is adrenal and this is cortisol. And your body just doesn't have anything left to give. So this is why it's so important. A lot of women get into the exhaustion, the brain exhaustion, the physical exhaustion, and the poor quality sleep, the mid-evening, the 2 a.m. wake up calls because of our stress during the day. So then I get the question, it's probably my hormones. So usually women will say during these transition times, I think it's my hormones. I'm like, well, of course it's your hormones. Cortisol is a hormone. Your melatonin's a hormone. Like, there's so many different hormones that we can talk about. Yeah, your hormones are jacked because of stress. So then the next thing is, do you think I should be on hormones? Now, I am not a hormone expert in the sense that I don't prescribe hormones. But what I do know is that no amount of hormones, being on them, or even medications of any kind, is going to save you if you don't put all the lifestyle habits into place. It's like trying to out-exercise a poor diet. It just doesn't work that way. You can't be exercising and then going to eat fast food every day and not hydrating and expect you're going to have good outcomes. It just doesn't work. So I'm going to go through some things that I want you all to be paying attention to. You might want to take notes on this one, but I want you to pay attention to this so that you can start to look at, if we took each and every one of these things that I'm going to talk about next, and they were all a spoke on a wheel. Your wheel should be relatively round. Now, none of us are going to have a perfect circle wheel, because sometimes things in our lives will ebb and flow. You need to pay a little more attention here, a little less attention there. But the overall goal is that if you're completely flat, if you have a completely flat tire, we've got to do something about it. So let's look at the top three things, the top 6 things that we need to be focusing on. So sleep, blood sugar, movement, hydration, mindset, and nutrition. And now these are all really important. They all will go hand in hand. So like I said, sleep, this is the most, the one that gets overcharged the most on your tab. Poor sleep affects millions of Americans. And this is why it's so important that we have to pay attention to the stress that's coming earlier in the day. When you're not sleeping, you also create a situation of inflammation in the body. Your blood sugar gets altered. Your gut bacteria gets altered. And so it can affect digestion. And it can affect inflammation. And when inflammation gets driven up, then we get more aches and pains. We can get more migraine headaches. We can get more digestive issues. So sleep is really the number one thing that needs to be fixed through all of these other things. Then the next thing would be blood sugar. So are we skipping meals? Are we carbohydrate overload? Are we just drinking a ton of coffee? Now, when I say skipping meals, a lot of people fast. And I think it's important that you look into fasting. I'm not going to go into fasting in this episode, but it's important that you look into fasting because some people may not have the metabolic endurance for fasting. And let's say you're somebody who is fasting and then you drink a ton of caffeine in the morning. And the problem with that is going to overstimulate your adrenal glands and it can actually throw off your blood sugar. And then it can make you more hungry. It can cause you to be lightheaded. And so you need to, if you're going to fast, you need to be able to do it properly so that you're not just, say, I'm just not going to eat for several hours and I'm going to drink a ton of coffee. And I know a lot of people who do that. And then, of course, carbohydrate overload in the form of not healthy carbohydrates. So processed foods, a lot of pastas and crackers and cookies and sugars and refined carbohydrates, breads and cereals, all of that needs to go by the wayside. If you want to have good energy, then just move to high quality proteins and high quality fruits and vegetables. And, maybe some rice and maybe, if you're a sourdough person, I make sourdough. So I might have a slice of sourdough at night with my dinner, but we have to get rid of all of the highly processed foods because that's we're getting the chemicals in our diets and that's throwing everything off as well. And then movement. If you're not moving, so our organs they work on the fact that when we move, it moves things, it like squeezes and wrings out our organs so that we can have good digestion, so we can have healthy bowel movements every day. If you're not having a bowel movement every day, we have a problem. Things are staying in your system too long, and then you're going to reabsorb those toxins, and those toxins go into the fat cells, which part of your brain is a lot of fat. And so it can cause brain fog. It can cause dizziness. It can cause ringing in the ears. It can create migraine headaches. So you have to start thinking about your movement. I love yoga for that respect, even just getting up and walking. If you're somebody who says, I'm just not going to do yoga, that's fine. Just get up and walk. You have to be able to move. So I was doing my podcast, Chiropractic is Sexy. I did that from 1 to 1:45, and now I'm recording this. So I'm doing back to back. And when I'm done with this, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go walk for 15 minutes before I start my afternoon. So I have to plan the movement in there. And a lot of times that's what you have to do is throughout the day, make sure you're planning movement into your schedule so that you're not sluggish. Your lymphatic system, which is the garbage disposal of the body, it's supposed to be pumped and draining and get all that garbage out, but it gets stagnant when we sit all day. So really important to move because that'll also get toxins moving through the liver and help you detoxify and digest better. And then, of course, hydration. Now, if you are not properly hydrated, your brain actually shrinks. So the brain needs water, it needs fluid, it needs hydration. And that is not in the form of soda or fashion waters, Gatorade, Powerades, Monster drinks, none of that. That stuff is so toxic to the brain. And a lot of young kids are drinking a lot of these monster drinks, and they have so many chemicals in them. And I've talked to parents who say that like their child is they see this erratic behavior. They're very disrespectful. They fly off the handle like that. And yes, we know that teenagers can be like that, but when you're drinking those kinds of toxins, the brain, I call it brain on fire. There's so much inflammation in the brain that, think about it. If you squeezed your brain, you wouldn't be able to think clearly either. You wouldn't have the bandwidth to deal with people either. And so trying to get these kids off of these monster drinks I think that is critical for us. We've just got to just start hydrating with water. And I do want to address here, I saw a video on Instagram earlier this week, and it was some influencer. And sometimes he has good stuff on there, but sometimes I'm like, bro, you got to stop. And he talked about a recent study that just came out that talked about don't drink cold water, because cold water causes dementia and all these other chronic illnesses. And I was like, and I commented on it, and I said, are you seriously going to confuse people about drinking water? Like, there's so much confusion in the world of health and nutrition as it is, and you want to make people afraid of drinking water, cold water? No, we're not doing that. So we're not doing that on this channel. So I bring that to you to say, if you hear anything insane like that, please let me know so I can address it, because I'm addressing that right here. Drink water. I don't care if you drink it cold or hot. In fact, if you think about like our predecessors, like they probably drank from cold streams, ice cold streams. Do you think they all ended up with dementia and chronic disease? I don't think so. So just be smart. When you're hearing things like that, don't get frustrated and don't allow yourself to be pulled into that level of confusion. Just let me know. I'll address it. And then just move along. Let's go to the next thing. Just say that person doesn't know what they're talking about. So the next thing is mindset. Are you someone who reacts or responds? I did a podcast about this a few weeks ago, and I talked about being somebody who responds versus reacts. And that's a really important distinction, because reacting to things, that's stress. That is your stress going off. Responding to things is your rest, digest, and repair. You're staying in a calmer state. When you respond to things, you're actually able to think more clearly, make better decisions, be more creative, and come up with solutions a lot better. Reacting to things does not allow you to do that. So think about that. Who are you? Do you respond or do you react? And sometimes if you can just respond, take a deep breath. Like if something happens, I think our brains are wired so we just want to knee jerk, and we want to get in there. We want to make a response, whether it's in person or through a text message or an email or a phone call. Don't react. If you find yourself moving to a place where you want to react, take a step back, take a deep breath, give it a couple of hours, give it a day, 2 days, and then see how you feel. Your ability to respond after you've waited, after you've stepped back and waited, will be so much greater. And if you have to have a confrontation with somebody in a response mindset, that alone you'll actually be able to be more clear in your messaging and be able to get across your point in a better way. And then mindset, besides reacting and responding, mindset is just about, how do you view the world? Are you viewing the world in a positive way? Are you viewing the world in a negative way? Is the glass half empty? Is it half full? Are you a doom and gloom kind of person? Do you have are you optimistic? Optimistic, happy people actually live longer. So where do you land on that? I know people who have a mindset of everything is very negative and it's very like, I have a hard time being around them. I won't be around people who have that kind of a mindset where you're like, God, they're depressed and they're depressing to be around and nothing is happy around them. And so it's difficult to be in the presence of those people. So make sure you're protecting your own happiness, protecting your own joy through your own mindset. And then lastly, nutrition. So we've had this conversation multiple times. Are you fueling resistance or resilience, or are you fueling dysfunction? So this is where, are you making a deposit or are you taking a withdrawal? And the more deposits we can make, is what I'm eating, is what I'm drinking, is this going to put me closer to good health or take away good health? And so think about that. You're only stealing from yourself if your nutrition isn't on point. You're stealing your life. You're stealing your health. You're stealing your future. You're stealing your longevity. You're stealing moments with your kids, your grandkids, your community. You're stealing moments from yourself that if you want to be the person like my mom, who was dancing at my nephew's wedding at 80 years old, danced all night. If you want to be that person, then you need to think about how are you fueling yourself. If you think you'll end up being the person in the wheelchair watching from the sidelines, then it's time to change something. So start asking yourself, what am I feeding? Am I feeding dysfunction? Am I fueling resilience? So, really thinking about, you wouldn't ignore your bills. You wouldn't ignore them. We make this agreement. We're going to pay our bills. We're going to make sure that we pay them on time. And we get a credit score because we are good with our money, and we make sure that everything is paid as it should be. We don't overspend. And so it's important to recognize that's how nutrition works as well. And if you go out for an indulgent dinner, or say we had an Independence Day and there was a lot of picnics around here, and I was really good with my nutrition for a week ahead of time, and for a couple of days, I wouldn't say went off the rails in my way. I ate things that I probably normally wouldn't. I had a bite of a cupcake, so I wouldn't normally do that. Didn't eat the whole cupcake. But anyway, then this whole week, I've been really good about it as well. So it's important to pay attention. Moments are going to come along. That doesn't mean you can't indulge. You just have to be smart about how you do it. So when we're looking at the solution, so let's talk about the solution to giving you greater longevity, greater health, greater happiness, greater mobility. What we want to do is look at all those things again. And how do we fix sleep? So I mentioned earlier that sleep is something that we have to fix throughout the day. So sleep is something that yes, you need a good, consistent bedtime routine. That's really important. Reading, journaling before bed, I find those are really great ways to help, I don't want to say if induce sleep, but it helps put you in that mindset of sleep. Occasionally, I'll put a guided meditation on if I need to fall asleep. But I don't really want to be watching TV because all of that blue light is very stimulating to the nervous system, and that can actually interfere with sleep. The other thing with a bedtime routine is let's not forget about caffeine. So caffeinated beverages should not be consumed past noon. If you're somebody with sleep, you need to try this. Make sure you're not drinking anything caffeinated past 12 noon. That also means you need to look at the things that you're drinking. If you're drinking something other than water, you go into the store and you buy something in a can or a bottle. And let me tell you, tea has caffeine in it. So it's summer. A lot of people are like, hey, let's do iced tea. Unless it's an herbal tea, you're going to have caffeine. Yes, green tea still has caffeine in it. So being mindful of that. So and I know hydration is number 2, but I want to address the caffeine portion of this as it relates to sleep. So if you're somebody who has issues with sleep, you cannot have caffeine past 12 noon. The other thing I would suggest is make sure if you're taking vitamin D, make sure you're taking that in the morning. That is your wake hormone, vitamin D. It's not a sleepy hormone. So if you're taking it at night, that can actually disrupt your melatonin production. Melatonin's supposed to go up, and we get our cortisol that'll come down, but vitamin D can actually suppress melatonin from coming up to make us sleepy. So vitamin D in the morning. And then of course, caffeine not past noon. And make sure that you're really paying attention to that. Read any labels. And the next thing is hydration. And so water is always first. Water, water, water. And caffeine is always second. When you wake up in the morning, I know we all love that morning cup of coffee, but I drink out of these at home. So a mason jar, and that gets filled with ice water first thing in the morning. Yes, ice water. I drink ice water. According to that study, I'm not going to live very long. But we want to make sure we're getting water first thing out of bed. Hydrate. Get yourself a good 8, 10, 12, 16 ounces of water in you. And then if you want caffeine, go ahead and have your coffee. But hydrate first. Don't dump caffeine and coffee right onto an empty stomach. Get the hydration in there. I do love iced tea. And so I do herbal tea. And so I'll make a pitcher of herbal tea, put it in the refrigerator, and I'll drink that throughout the day, especially in the summer. That tastes really lovely. I'll put a little orange blossom water in it. It gives a nice fragrance to it. So that's my favorite for hydration: water, and then herbal iced tea that has no caffeine. And then the next thing is movement. So on movement is find something that you love to do from a movement perspective. Now, if you're like, I don't really know what to do, I love yoga from getting that helps get the body moving. Again, that helps to wring out the intestines so that we're getting better bowel movement, better detoxification, better function of our organs. But movement is something that if you can find a community, find a walking partner, find a group fitness class, find something where you can create community around it. I have a friend who does tap dancing, and then they do performances together. My mom used to be involved in the Novi Senior Theater. So she would have to go and, they had to learn dance routines. They would sing. They had to, learn the words to songs. These are all very powerful things for the nervous system. So there's movement and there's fun in that movement. And so I encourage you to find something that brings you joy. I love in the summertime, I still love yoga, but I love being on my mountain bike. I'm on my mountain bike. I'm in nature. I am getting exercise, but I'm also find myself constantly expressing gratitude for the fact that I'm physically capable enough to be on my mountain bike 30 years later, 35 years later. And it feels amazing. So it's things like that, like what brings you joy, what makes you feel at peace. Find something that you can stick with, that you can be disciplined with, that doesn't feel like work, at least at first. And then if you got to go to the gym a couple of days a week and it feels like work, it's okay because you know that the outcome is going to be amazing. And then mindset, we talked about that. So how do we deal with mindset? We're gonna look at what kind of breath work, just breathing throughout the day. Here's a good one: having boundaries with people, making sure that people don't steal your time. This is really important when it comes to mindset, being aware of who likes to zap your time. Now, another big zapper of time is your phone. So having boundaries means you have to have your own boundaries from your phone. Okay. Did you hear me? And that also means you who wear fitness tracker watches, you have to have boundaries around that. I am so tired of talking to people, trying to connect and have conversations, and this is constantly happening. Their brain is constantly being taken away from you to something else. This is disrupting our brain. And this whole disruption of the neurological signals is creating a world of I'm ADHD. Everybody's walking around saying they're ADHD these days. Well, I promise you, if you have a fitness watch, you're probably one of those ones walking around saying you have ADHD. Well, no wonder. You're being disrupted 2,000 times a day through your watch. At least with the phone, you can put it aside. You can turn the ringer off. This thing is terrible. So this is you and boundaries around you and your time. So it's easy to kind of, put a block and say, okay, I can't have these meetings. Can I have 5 minutes of your time? Actually, no, I don't have time for that. That's not going to work for me. So we have lots of different ways we can put boundaries around other people, which we need to. but we need to put boundaries around ourselves so we respect our own time and our own bandwidth. And then nutrition. I mentioned this earlier, making sure you're eating high quality protein and food that has colors in it, not artificially. So eat foods like when I look down at my plate and it's full of greens and tomatoes and peppers, and it has all these wonderful nutrients and colors from all natural foods. And then I put some kind of high quality protein on it. That brings me joy. Like I'm eating with my eyes. And we say a lot of times we eat with our eyes. So try to make your plate as colorful with good, healthy, actual food as you possibly can. And also higher protein, higher fiber in the form of, a lot of times you say high fiber and people are like, oh yeah. And they go out and they get a fiber supplement. All you have to do is just start eating more vegetables, more fruit. And that is one really great way you can get your fiber. So the next thing is your nervous system. Chiropractic works to help you move into rest, digest, and repair. So it works on what's called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve it's a major nerve, a cranial nerve, comes from the brain, and it goes down and it encompasses everything in the body. So when you have a thought and you get butterflies in your stomach, or you get a nervous stomach, that's your vagus nerve. That's the thought going into the belly. And so the vagus nerve is really powerful, and it helps with calming the heart rate. It helps with calming your respiration, your breathing. It helps with your digestion, and it helps with repairing of the body. So chiropractic actually affects the vagus nerve. So if you're somebody who's chronically stressed and having anxiety and you just can't seem to calm down, you might need to call a chiropractor. You might need to get in and have all that tension released from your spine. If your spine doesn't have the mobility it should, which most people don't, there's a lot of compression on these vital nerves. And so we need to get things moving again. And when we can move them as chiropractors and stimulate the nervous system, stimulate blood flow through there, we suddenly just release the tension, release the energy. And people are like, oh my God, I feel amazing again. So get under chiropractic care. And then, of course, connection. I mentioned this earlier. Finding a community, find different places that you can go that feel safe, but that also are, have all these same tenets, these same principles to be able to get you moving. They have good mindsets. Maybe, maybe you go to a cooking class and that's part of that nutrition and gets you engaged with having to connect yourself with your food. So that is, if I recap, sleep, hydration, movement, mindset, nutrition, nervous system, and ultimately community connection. And if you can take all of these together, if you treated it like a savings account, like a bank account, how much money would you have? So treat it like a savings account, not a credit card. We don't want to be taking out loans on our health. We want to be saving and banking and creating wealth around that. Okay, so that is it for today. And just remember that you cannot outrun an unhealthy diet. You cannot out exercise an unhealthy diet. So think about that as you're going through this, is it's the same thing. If you don't have everything else on lock and you want to run towards hormones or run towards some kind of a medication, or if you find yourself, I'm sore, I'm taking Advil all the time, I'm going to go golfing, I'm going to take Advil so that just in case, so I don't get sore. That is not going to help you. Your body, you should feel sore. You should, if you're challenging and moving your body the proper way, you need to allow it to feel what it needs to feel. This is part of your body's growth cycle. It's part of building muscle. It's part of building endurance. It's part of building that longevity. We need to stop trying to dampen the things that our bodies need to feel. And also the dangerous part about that is if your body needs something and you're constantly dampening it with medication, how are you going to know? How are you going to know? So, okay. All right. So that is our Sunday Night Live for today. So what I would invite you to do is click the link in the comments if you want to sign up for the newsletter, or if you just want to connect with me. If you're wondering how can I help you with your lifestyle, with getting your lifestyle habits on track, then go ahead and leave a comment or go ahead and email me. I'll leave that link in the comments below. And we are having a wine, wellness, and longevity here in my office in New Hudson, Michigan on July 31st. So if you're interested, if you're in the area, we would love to have you here and be a part of it. So, all right. That is it, you guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have an incredible week. And I'll see you next Sunday on Sunday Night Live, maybe live. All right. See y'all soon.